When you hear about Patry, either you hear that he was one of the best villains in Black Clover, or one of the best villains at his time, or you hear this, he was wasted, and Tabata made him change sides a little bit too easily. I've been hearing that for a long time, so let's ask the question, was Patry wasted? My personal opinions on Patry, but for this, we're actually going to go through Patry's life and see when and where he went wrong and how he developed and changed into the character we know as for today. But if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell notification to always stay notified whenever I upload. Remember, I upload My Academia, Black Clover, and sometimes Jujutsu Kaisen, so stay tuned for the content I have for the future. About Patry's hate for humans, it's pretty self-explanatory. He thought that they were betrayed by the human that they trusted, which was Lumiere. And keep in mind, Patry was the one who saw the rune that revived the elves, and he thought this was Licht's doing so they could get revenge in the future on the humans that wronged them. Yes, Patry was a 15-year-old boy at the time, but again, he still looked up to Licht, and he saw him as an idol. He saw Licht as a father figure, because Licht was his inspiration, and that was taken away from him from the quote-unquote humans and from Lumiere's distrust. So this is actually great character writing from Tabata, because in his naive little head, he thought it was Licht who revived the elves so they can get their revenge on the humans, because it was the only bright spot to the whole thing, and that was the only thing that Patry could ever think of happening. I will credit Tabata because the way he wrote Patry, it was naivety, because he thought that Licht wanted this whole thing to happen. Patry slowly began hating humans even more because the hatred he built up for the 500 years passing. And not only that, he actually did not care if the humans have changed or not. He still thinks humans are humans, the same scumbags that stole their magic. Patry thought everything, that the revival of the elves and that him looking like Licht was all according to Licht so they can get their ultimate revenge on the humans. But he slowly found out that this wasn't the case, that Zagred was just using him as a mere puppet. Yes, I may have my differences on Zagred, but I will admit this twist was very good, and it put Patry in a difficult place. When Zagred was telling Patry the truth about everything, that was him that kind of slaughtered all of the elves, and it wasn't the humans, and that Licht did not want any of this, Patry couldn't believe it. He thought that this was just a lie, it was just a dream. But Patry slowly began to break down, his mental psyche, everything, because Patry didn't know what to think at this point. Patry felt like that it was his duty and his destiny to become and look like Licht and inherit this 4-leaf grimoire so he can enact his revenge on the humans. Patry now is just mentally broken and is in a even worse situation because now his leaf has turned into a 5th leaf, and this leads him to being Dark Elf Patry. Now let's talk about Patry way before this. We already knew that he did not want to forgive humans regardless, because he felt like if he did again that they'd just get betrayed. Even though there was parallels between Asta and the first Wizard King, and even Asta and Julius having parallels to Patry, Patry felt like it wasn't good enough to forgive these guys, because they just might get backstabbed again. Now for the people who are saying that Asta changed Patry too quickly, I disagree, because Patry was already in a vulnerable situation and he already thought that himself was a failure, and he knew that Licht did not want any of this. Because you gotta think about it in Patry's point of view. He's already broken, he's already been tortured enough, but now with Asta trying to bring him back to the light and try to bring him back to his senses and not to give up on himself. As you can see here, Asta reached out to Patry when no one else could, and when no one else did, when he was already broken by Zagred. Asta was the light of Patry. Patry needed that light, because Patry did not know what to think at the moment. You think that he changed sides too quickly, I guess you're a little bit wrong as well, because they're fighting this devil who wants to bring the end of humans and elves, so they must band together and try to stop this thing. Patry going through despair does not make him an even worse villain. It makes him even better. It shows that his ideology was flawed. It showed that his planning was flawed. It showed that what he thought Licht wanted was flawed, because he thought Licht wanted what he wanted to do, but instead he did not think about what Licht really wanted. What did Licht really want? Peace between elves and humans. Constantly through the elf saga, Asta has been showing parallels to the first Wizard King and showing that he wants other races and peasants and commoners and royals to band together and try to be equal, and he was the only one to actually say this to the elves. And even though Julius said this, but that was his dying breath, Asta felt genuine about it. I think the whole theme with Zagred versus the elves and humans was not to let the past shackle you and not letting the history repeat itself. It's time to actually move forward with your life and try to better yourself. That was what Patry was doing. He trusted in Lumiere and Lick's friendship, and now he's trusting in Yuno and Asta's friendship and helping the humans defeat the person who gave them so much pain. Now, in the end of the Zagreb fight, we think Patry's sacrifice is now noble, and we think that his character is now done. It's a closed case. He gave up his body so Lick and William could do the combo spell and get rid of the elf souls in the humans' bodies. We know that Rades revived him, so now Patry has to atone in his own way. I felt like Tabata, in my opinion, felt like Patry dying would not atone for anything. He felt like Patry needed to atone on his own while he's alive. And you can disagree with this, but does that make him wasted? No, that doesn't make him wasted in the slightest. But this part right here, you could say is disappointing, and I wouldn't really argue against this. But Patry needs to atone while he's alive, and so he can atone with William for the sins they committed on the Clover Kingdom. You can't say that Patry is not redeeming himself whatsoever in this current arc, but what if I told you he actually is? He's helping the humans that he tried to kill beforehand, and he's now helping them fight the good fight against the devils and the other devils in the world. So I think Patry is trying to redeem himself in the slightest by helping the humans who he thought that wronged him, and now helping out the world and trying to get rid of these demons. Yes, death can be redemption, but living long enough and redeeming yourself through living could also be redemption. Now let me answer the question of the video. Was Patry wasted? After everything I said in the video, I'm going to come to the conclusion, no, he was not. Patry was somebody who looked up to Lick, and he thought that Lick wanted all of this to happen so they can get their revenge on the humans. Later on, he found out that he was wrong, and that he was just being used as a pawn. Not knowing what to think of this, he went into despair, and he was in a vulnerable situation. Asta was the light in Patry's darkness, bring him out of that darkness and despair, and show that they could team up and beat this devil. Even though you could admit that yes, he should have died, but he's already redeeming himself in the way of helping out the Clover Kingdom in the Spade invasion. Patry, in my opinion, has already solidified himself as one of the top current new gen villains in manga and anime. And you can disagree with me, this is just my take, but Patry is just that well written. If you guys stayed around on this video, well, congrats, and I hope you did enjoy this video. Tell me in the comments what you liked and what you disliked, or if you just disagreed in general. But I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I'll be heading up out of here. Peace out, guys. Hope you have the great rest of the day. And again, if you have any criticisms, post them down below. And I'm out, guys. See ya.